Yesterday, AVOWED had a major update, 1.4 adding a slew of new features, and they finally revealed their roadmap plans. So this should be an exciting time to check out what's coming. However, some of the stuff listed, I do feel a little bit disappointed it's not arriving a bit earlier. And it doesn't seem that ambitious with some of the stuff also on its way, with no mention of any kind of DLC or new expansions. Hey RATBAGGERS, it's Jade today, going over, the roadmap plans and what I think about them. There is a huge patch, literally just pages and reams of patch notes. But absolutely fair play, so much added here, so much fixed. But that also presents a little bit of an issue for me. Some of this stuff surely should have been done a bit earlier or sooner. I did manage to finish AVOWED and I enjoyed my time thoroughly. It definitely had some shortcomings, but overall I thought the combat was great. I loved the visuals and the effects of the weapons. Exploration and the actual mini worlds was fantastic, if somewhat disappointed by the story and certain elements of maybe the loot being just not that amazing, with quite a few of the weapons and armors just feeling a bit not really that great. With magic being absolutely the best way to enjoy the game in my opinion. But absolutely a solid 7, 8 out of 10 for me. It got a bad rep for God knows why, people comparing it to Skyrim when it's never really been portrayed as that. It's an action RPG, not a simulation or sandbox RPG. All that shit was blown out of proportion, but it does look like the devs have listened to some of that feedback, and some of the improvements that they're adding are pointing towards making the world feel a little bit more live, particularly with NPCs. So let's just go over the highlights of 1.4. They've got map exploration enhancements. Once most of the map's accessible area is explored, the fog of war will now fully clear. So no more looking at a map that's just got these crazy lines going all over the place. And in a city on an overland map, e.g. Northern Paradise and Dawnshore, will now reveal that portion of the map. And you'll get more of the radius as the fog clears as you go across it. They've also added critter loot drops. Crits can now be defeated and may drop loot. So yes, you'll now finally be able to go and slay a bunch of the cows and other creatures in the game, I'm guessing, and be able to pick up some minor loot, things like leather perhaps and stuff. There's a new camp party feature that you can now wait at the party camp to advance time. Improved soul pod functionality. They'll now dispel illusions except for Ringrim's entrance, which will still require Yatzli's help. Chests will now optionally appear on the minimap if you're still struggling to find some of the loot. Power attacks with the bow and arquebus can now be cancelled with a new setting. They've also added a proper arachnophobia mode. Obviously taking on board maybe some of the tech and stuff they did with Grounded, which was pretty groundbreaking at the time. The spiders will now literally float around like these orbs and have swords for legs. As stupid as it looks, it's there if people really do have a problem with it. And I'm all down for making the game more accessible as an option, if people need that. Also got some stuff with localization in certain countries like Korea, Japan, and more improvements to French speaking. And that's really the big highlights, at least, that they've listed. When you dive a bit more deeper, you can see as well that players can now wait to pass time. So there's a day and night cycle while in the party camp now. So no more only setting up at night time. Arrows will now fall naturally and hit the ground. You may have seen lots of meme videos of arrows just hovering in the air. Water now reacts with splashes and ripples when players enter it or fire weapons into it. There's even more weapons being added to the game, some that are going to come pre-upgraded so you don't have to waste as many resources, and they have increased the amount of resources as well as the rewards money that you get for completing quests and exploration. Small containers such as backpacks and lockboxes will now contain larger items like body armor and larger weapons, giving a bit more fairly distributed drops. And they've increased significantly the drop rate of creature parts, which apparently you now can go ahead and upgrade your grimoires, which is definitely a win. They've also got an increased rate of higher tier weapons in later regions, and they've got slightly more upgrade materials being included in the loot lists. Mouse and keyboard input has been added for Xbox, bunch of other visual improvements. Combat now, enemies will take shocked faster damage when standing in water, and companions now gain points every 3 levels instead of every 4, giving them an increase from 8 to 11. You'll get these points additionally as soon as you boot up. They've improved the enemy awareness so that enemies will now respond depending on where they are. They'll take a bit longer to come harass you if you are further away, but the closer they are, the quicker they're going to get their swords out and start attacking. And there's a bunch of improvements to lots of the weapons and gear. Things like the chitting band or kiting band increased damage reduction against beasts to 20%. The third born Brigadier Jack increased health regeneration from 0.5 to 0.8. They've also replaced obsolete carry capacity enhancements on certain unique items with new stat buffs. So Boots of the Bricklayer will now give you 2+ might. The Pack Mule's Burden, which was giving you Honor Bound Mule, now gives you 1 might and 2 constitution. So these are the kind of improvements you can see. And a ton of bug fixes, like just upon issue resolved. Lots of crashes, optimization, quests not working correctly, just tons and tons and tons of stuff. So why am I slightly disappointed? Well, maybe disappointed's not the full word, maybe that's even a bit strong. But bearing in mind this game came out in February, it's been nearly 3 months, and this is probably one of the biggest updates they've had. There've definitely been smaller hotfixes and stuff, and particularly in March there was a bunch of improvements to controls and stuff. But things like balancing out the loot and stuff, it feels like really that should have been there from launch or quickly resolved soon after. I know they've probably taken time to see feedback and stuff, and you got to question why, since they've had arachnophobia mode in other games, why mouse and keyboard support wasn't really there for Xbox, given it's their main platform. I love Obsidian, I've supported them through thick and thin while covering Grounded over the last nearly 5 years, and I got a ton of stick while covering AVOWED with different videos and stuff because I was enjoying the game or hyped for its release. But the more that time's gone on, with all of these little hotfixes and stuff improving and adding to the game, really does said to me that the game probably was still just a bit too early to come out, even though it had a delay and it was meant to have come out last year, and even though it's been in development for literally like 5-6 years, whatever it is. Just imagine what kind of reaction the game might have had, instead of all the naysayers jumping on every tiny thing, if water did indeed move around when you actually entered it, or that your arrows wouldn't just fly in the middle of air when you was trying to aim at certain enemies, and that you could kill every creature that you come across. It's these kinds of things that seem pretty minor, but with such a big collection of them, it did detract, apparently, by the wider population too, not just the actual big crybabies. So, great patch for sure, but 3 months on, I think it would have been nice to have seen a bunch of that stuff added a little bit sooner. Now on to the rest of their roadmap plans, and it obviously looks like this is what they're going for, a big update every quarter with small hotfixes and minor improvements in between. In the summer they're going to have cooking and crafting improvements, new NPC abilities and behaviours, new active and passive abilities, new unique weapons and armours, and custom map markers. Like, some of this stuff is what literally they got negative reviews for, people complaining that they couldn't mark locations on their map, or that their actual cooking and crafting system just really was a bit lackluster. Having literally a billion recipes for different foods, for sure giving you some benefits that absolutely are great, but maybe not signposted enough. I get maybe unique weapons and armour taking a while to add, and that would definitely be a bit of a bonus for players that are going through the game. But the idea they're adding new active and passive abilities, like, why wasn't that there for launch? That feels like that's going to be a core part of the gameplay experience the first time you play AVOWED. I know not every game has to be there one and done when you start it. Many people have gone back over to Skyrim over the years, of course. But I think AVOWED is going to need a little bit more if they're going to convince people to return over and over again. So this might be a good first step. But again, it does feel to me just like this stuff should have been there with the launch. And then fall 2025, this is where stuff might actually sound really good. New Game Plus. Desperately AVOWED needs something like this. The fact that you get to a certain point in the game and you're kind of done, you can't carry on exploring the world, when really it could easily be switched that you could still go and explore definitely certain cities and places. It was weird to me that they just bookended the game like that. Like I said, it's meant to be an action RPG and quite linear, even though it's great exploration in these biomes. But there was just but literally the last zone, without too many spoilers, contains so many great weapons that you'll use for all of maybe an hour, because you get to the end of the game and that's it. So that's a great move. And although I'm still going to say it, I think that could have been pushed forward a bit sooner or should have come a bit earlier. 6 to 9 months is probably the norm for a new Game Plus to be added when you take a look at previous games that have done it. Not many launch with a new Game Plus, of course, but think about Assassin's Creed games or other style games, it generally come a bit of a time afterwards. But definitely I felt that would have helped retention, would have helped players try and seek out the different endings that you got in the game, rather than just having to reload your last save before certain points. Or yeah, at least allow you to explore the rest of the world even without New Game Plus. And most criminal of all is photo mode. How the fuck has there not been a photo mode added? It's almost like a common thing now. Even small indie games tend to have photo modes added. So the idea we've got to wait like another 5 months, potentially 6 months for that seems just way behind. They're adding some new weapon types, cool. Changing appearances in the world, cool. New character presets, okay, and more godlike feature presets. So customization and stuff like that, excellent. For sure, the new weapon types can go well with a New Game Plus. That obviously might be something that you can only earn in New Game Plus. And they've done something pretty similar in Grounded, although actually it has become a bit of a negative. In Grounded, there's a bunch of gear that you can only get at each stage of a New Game Plus. So some of the weapons you can't access until you've completed the game literally 4 times, or certain structures they've done. Grounded is pretty unique because it's an open world survival game, and I think they did a pretty good job of implementing something new and fresh that not many survival games have, but it was let down a little bit by the grind, the difficulty of these New Game Pluses, and the fact that some players just wanted to have some of that loot a bit sooner. So if it sounds like they're going to do something similar with this, I could be wrong. Maybe it will just be something to throw in for everyone who's not even interested in New Game Plus. But at this stage, hardcore fans that have been playing Avowed, are you going to return just to mess around with like maybe whips or some new weapon? No. So obviously it makes sense to go into it with New Game Plus maybe. So yeah, honestly, I don't want to be grumpy. I'm not like mad hating. I understand Avowed did have a bit of a difficult time. Had multiple creative leads in its early days, and then kind of was just put together by the crew that actually got the game out with a lot of hard work and a lot of basically struggling to tie this game from what it was, which apparently was some sort of live service co-op game, to be something more singular, taking on feedback and trying to improve it. I actually think it could have been great as a co-op game, really. I think the devs at Obsidian are smashing it out of the park. They've had so many games in the most recent years that are fantastic, even if they're not in my genre or particularly like Pentiment. But this roadmap just feels like it should have just been part of the base game, and I probably would have waited and wouldn't have minded waiting another 6 months for it. Like, reviews have been good on Metacritic and stuff like that, but they're still like a 7, 8 out of 10 at max. And yeah, there's no mention of any kind of expansion. When you look at the actual map for Avowed, it feels like it's ripe. There's definitely places there we haven't visited. There's no sort of snow biome or mountains, and that's clearly kind of listed on the map. It does feel like some stuff must have been cut. And maybe they're going to go ahead and do it. Maybe they really had to wait and see what kind of reception this game got. Reportedly had over 2 million players play it and stuff like that. It's a Game Pass eccentric game, so conversion isn't the most important thing. It's more just about getting people to play it and take notice of the Game Pass and utilise it. But there's also no news about a PlayStation 5 release. This feels like they've got a team on this for sure still, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the team have already started to be moved on to other projects. And with no news about a potential expansion or anything in the next year, that could actually be it for Avowed. They might be cutting their losses somewhat, but don't want to seemingly be just jettisoning it after all the hard work. But equally don't want to carry on supporting it. It's just a one and done game, which I guess is okay. So yeah, I have to say I uninstalled Avowed. I've got limited space, so I have to be careful about what I've got always running. I might come back for the summer to take a look at some of that new stuff for sure. But really, there's nothing here that's going to make me come back and really want to play Avowed until we get the New Game Plus. So that's just my thoughts and opinions on it. You guys let me know. How much of Avowed did you actually get through? Did you complete it? What did you love? What did you hate? And what do you think about these plans? Would you like to see some sort of expansion? Whether it's paid or free update or whatever, let me know what you think about Avowed. And yeah, if you're into survival games, RPG games like Oblivion, Skyrim, upcoming brand new open world sandbox survival games, and RPGs like Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon, maybe give the subscribe button a hit. I do news, I do guides, I do reviews. Until next time, Ratbags, I'll catch you later.